I just want to, first of all, thank you so much. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Christina Hildebrand. I wear many, many hats, and most of you know me from one place or another. But as I say, I have 2 jobs, I have 2 nonprofits, and I have 2 kids, and the kids are the most important. But and I put this on, so I'm so excited to have everyone here. We have amazing speakers. LiveAware, I put it together for the first time 3 years ago. We have some returning speakers, some that have spoken every year, some that spoke the first year and are back this year, so it's exciting. I think one of the things that I really look for is to wake up people, and we started with the vaccine topic the first year. We had the GMO and food last year, and this year we went to air, and we're sort of covering all the controversial topics, and they seem to get more and more controversial. I think one of the things I realized this year, and I will put this out there, if anyone wants to help with next year, you're welcome to give me a call. But one of the things that I realized was the people that we're trying to attract aren't awake enough to be here. And many of the people that are already awake are here, or they're not coming because they're already awake. So one of the things that I'm going to work on this year is how we market to the people who are on the edge of being awake, and we can wake them up and make them come. So if anyone has any ideas or wants to help with that, I'm always open for help. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm a big believer in the people who are here are the right people to be here, and the people who are supposed to be here. So I really appreciate you all being here and taking part. And my hope is that when you leave here, that you spread the word more and you plant the seeds, because that's all we can do to wake people up. So thank you. I am going to introduce Matt Landman, who is our keynote speaker. So if many of you watched the movie FrankenSkies this afternoon, if you didn't, he has DVDs of it available. The thing that I love with FrankenSkies, if you noticed, Matt doesn't actually speak very much in it. It's very much a compilation of news sources and FBI or CIA, or like a whole bunch of different conferences that people have spoken at, or meetings that people have spoken at. And so it's very much a place that I like it, because it's not somebody telling you what to think, it's just giving you the evidence. And I will say there were a couple of people that came to me and were like, oh my goodness, and within the geoengineering space, that were just like, I can't believe you've got Matt coming to talk at your event. You should not have him there. And coming from the vaccine issue, we have a lot of that in our movement. But one thing that I realize is, you've done something right when there are people going, oh my goodness, you shouldn't have him there, because he's obviously done something to wake people up to know who he is. So I'm excited to have Matt talk. I think, the other piece that I'm a big believer in is we all have to listen to lots of different people's perspective and work out where we feel right and in our skin. And so, there are different perspectives, and not everyone in this room agrees on all topics, and that's great. That's something that I really hope people are taking in information and working out what they are passionate about, and what you can do to change the world. So I really appreciate that. A little bit about Matt. He is an activist. I think primarily he would call himself that. He obviously has done a lot in the 5G area, in the chemtrails area. He has FrankenSkies, the movie. He has, I believe, FrankenSkies 2 is coming out this year. And he, really wants to help people. There was somebody that was just like, we need solutions. And one of the things with LiveAware that I've told every single speaker is, if you come here and speak and put fear into people of what is going wrong in the world, you have to give active solutions that they can use in their daily life. So that's one of the things that I think Matt will speak to as well. So thank you, Matt, for coming, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. Thanks, everyone, for all the warm welcome, and for everyone that sat through FrankenSkies and all the amazing positive feedback. So before I get going on this presentation of 143 slides in an hour, just over an hour, I just want to start by saying, welcome to the age of falsehoods. That's where we're at. But what an amazing opportunity it is for all of us, especially us truth seekers, to cultivate our discernment, cultivate our intuition. Because real eyes realize real lies. And real skies, mind you. Okay? So we're here to honor the truth with integrity and to come together under that amazing bond that unifies all of us, truth seekers. And yes, it may be an age of falsehoods, but we live in a world of polarity, of duality. And what's on the flip side of falsehoods? Truth, right? So I call it the age of intuition cultivation, the age of discernment cultivation, where I literally get into my gut and I cultivate my street sense, and really I can see through the lies without anybody telling me what to think and how to think, because you can either take truth as the authority or authority as the truth. It's up to you. So before I get going, I like to kind of tell my story. I'm a normal guy as far as I can tell. I grew up in Virginia. I went to Virginia Tech. I got a bachelor's degree in science, bachelor's of science in marketing and management, sorry. I got a business degree. And I didn't come from money at all. I actually kind of grew up pretty poor. And I wanted to get into filmmaking, so I moved to California. And finally, I went back to school in Cal State Humboldt, north of here, and I got a master's in business administration with a focus in strategic sustainability, graduated top of my class, and while I was there, I studied film. And when I got out of film school, I went right back into the office space, and I worked in another cubicle. I thought getting an MBA would get me away from the business world. I don't know what I was thinking. But either way, I was a finance analyst, and I've worked a lot of different jobs. I've worked in restaurant industry, real estate. I even traded stocks for a long time. And the stock market actually was able to help me cultivate my intuition, because every morning I'd wake up and ask my gut, how'd it go? And I could feel a total knot in my stomach if something bad had happened. And that really was my spiritual journey of cultivating my intuition at a younger age, through greed at that point in time. So I left the cubicle or the office of the finance analyst job, and I got the opportunity with my MBA finally to get grounded and to work on an organic farm. And I did that for 1 year. I grew potatoes. I learned about all these varieties of squash and potatoes that I never knew existed. And day one, at the age of 34, I thought I knew everything, by the way. I graduated top of my class with an MBA, had a great public school upbringing. They said it was the best public school system in the country, Fairfax County Public Schools in Northern Virginia. But day one on this farm, I learned potatoes grew potatoes. And no one had ever told me that. I had had potatoes in my closet trying to do something, and I had just been told to throw it away, and oh, those eyes, you can't eat it now. I never knew potatoes grew potatoes. And that was a big kick in the face for me, because I thought I knew everything. So I learned more on that farm, getting grounded, getting connected to the earth, the sky, the elements, literally getting connected to the earth, and I started to really see the world. Come October, I'm working in a pumpkin patch. We grew 12 varieties of squash, winter squash. I didn't even know about varieties. I didn't know that there were multiple varieties of lemons until just recently, and it took me growing cilantro, having it go to seed, and the seeds were coriander, for me to even know that coriander grew cilantro, and I knew those two things existed for years. And this just happened this year, and I was so livid I did a YouTube video yelling at the world, why didn't I know this, right? So there's all these bigger truths that are hidden from us, but they're all so simple and so self-evident that that's why they're hidden from us. So on this farm, I'm out there in Northern California in the midst of a catastrophic drought. Little did I know that it was engineered, the drought. But at the time, I'm out there, and we're told that a massive storm system is coming. It's going to rain for a week, 100% chance of rain for a week. And literally where my farm was, I was right on the ocean. I could hear the waves crashing at the farm that I worked on. And I could see these black storm clouds come bellowing in. And I'm out there harvesting pumpkins so that the pumpkins don't rot in the field because it was going to dump. I've got on rain boots, raincoat, and out of the clear blue sky, no pun intended, dozens of planes showed up and grid the sky with these persistent linear cirrus cloud formations. The clouds came, they didn't drop any rain. If there was a little hole in the storm in that week's time, there'd be lines in the sky. I tabled that memory. I put it on a shelf. I didn't think anything of it. I was happy I wasn't getting drenched in the field. A couple months later, a friend of mine I'm talking to on the phone, we're talking about 9/11 and the kids nowadays, and these kids, what they say when you try to talk to them about 9/11 is, dude, I'm 18 years old, right? That happened before I was even born. I've heard both sides of the story, and I don't know what to think. So if they can't think something, they'll just move on. Yeah, there's two sides of the story. And my friend on the East Coast, he says to me, well, yeah, 9/11, I can understand that, but what about chemtrails? That's right in your face. And I said, what's that? And that little seed changed my life forever. And that's the power that all of us have, planting these little seeds. So I went home, I went on the internet, what are chemtrails? And I said, oh, I saw that. I know what that is. And I started looking up for the first time. And then I unraveled all these documentaries and different activists that were in the space. And I said, I want to make a movie, and I want to do as good of a job as I can to bring this truth to the world. What was especially frustrating for me is that my peers, my family, my friends, first off, they said I was crazy for thinking something like that was going on. But secondly, they had no reference point. They had never heard of it, not a drop. And the fact that nobody knew anything about it was inevitably why I devoted my entire life to this subject. But now I'm transitioning into EMF protective clothing and 5G awareness and all these other things. So here I go. Thank you everyone for listening. All right, so the skies are changing. And any of us that are over the age of 30, we can say, I never necessarily saw these skies as a kid. So that's something to look back on, these family photos, and start to realize something is changing that wasn't there before. So there's this normalization timeline to bring chemtrails, aka geoengineering, into the public space as something that we need. And I'm going to go over all this. So here's a few highlights of what I'm going to go over here. And this presentation is not meant to tell you how to think or what to think. It's just to show you that your eyes can realize these lies and we can discern for ourselves. We have this power. We don't need to be told how to think by anyone. So, and I'm going to show you a bunch of lies and you can see right through them towards the end. So we've got new clouds introduced, we've got geoengineering announced publicly, and Obama signing off on it, and a total slander campaign leading up to it to tell us that chemtrails are not real, even though chemtrails are about to be launched as this public good. So first, what was done was the conversation was completely controlled. Two synonyms, geoengineering and chemtrails, but one is a dirty word. All right, it was planned that way. The media controlled the terminology, controlled your perception of reality and mine. All right, but geoengineering, which is chemtrails, is this amazing solution, and it's going to save us from the carbon that we exhale and what have you. But seeing that these two are identical and seeing the games played will help us develop, like I said, our intuition, our cultivation of discernment, which is so important in this age of falsehoods. The media has been consolidated, and I went over this in my film, but this is so important because we think we have a trusted news source. I actually used to read The Economist, and I used to trust a certain news channel growing up. All of these companies have been gobbled up, bought up, consolidated. They're all given a script, and they're all saying what they're told to say, and it's all one side of the story, unless they want to trick you into thinking two sides of their story, but each side is usually falsehood, right? And it's up to us to find the truth, because we're the bringers of the truth, right? Being the truth seeker. So if you've got any friends or family who are thinking that Fox News or NBC is out for their own good and whatnot, and they start quoting things like the Russians stole the election and what have you, please give them the Heimlich maneuver. Okay, so how times have changed. In 1977, Time magazine told us we're going into an ice age, and I remember this. I'm 39 years old. I was born in 1980, and I remember as a kid, they said that we were going into an ice age. And I asked my science professor, what does that mean? And they said, well, miles of ice over our head. And I was like, well, what are we going to do about that? You know? But then, much easier reverse engineered are these heat waves with the chemtrails and the radio frequency radiation that they can intersect radio waves in the sky and heat the atmosphere. So this was a much easier story to pitch to gain control over our perception. So here, in just a short amount of time, the front page of Times Magazine did a complete 180. And we are guilt-tripped. Emotional heartstrings are plucked, and we are told that we are killing these poor polar bears. The polar bear on your left was seen by 1 billion people, all right? The media is controlled. The social media is controlled. What we see on our timeline when we're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or whatever, it's controlled, all right? And the lack of scrutiny, lack of transparency, and the continued censorship is very, very real. This skinny polar bear made you feel guilty about, well, not just exhaling carbon, which they won't come out directly and say, but about driving your SUV. It's your fault that this skinny polar bear is dying. And they will even use the polar bear to say that they're going to dim the sky because of the skinny polar bear that you made skinny. But guess what? The polar bears are actually thriving. So there's two sides to every story. And whenever I see the media, I literally ask my gut over and over, over and over. And I'm like, well, the opposite of what you're saying is actually true in my opinion, but it's okay because people will see through your lies. And the more the darkness shows itself, the more the light can even know that there is light and dark, and the more that we can blossom because we are the bringers of the dawn, in my opinion. So, Hegel was a German philosopher at the turn of the century. He created this master-slave dialectic, it's called problem, reaction, solution, where you can kind of corner the populace, corner the masses into this paradigm. Problem, reaction, solution. Well, the reaction is always fear, and that's where we get into this locked frequency and we're easily controlled. And that's why I've called my clothing line Sparrow, which is the opposite of fear, is hope. It's Latin translated to hope. But what happens in these scenarios, which they're doing it with geoengineering, they did it with 9/11 terror, and all these other things, is a problem is posed. War on terror. The solution, we're going to go invade Iraq, right? Well, the problem is always the solution in these scenarios. So they exacerbate or cause global warming, or they even say that the world was warming, but then the reaction is fear, and then the solution is then to spray the skies to actually create the problem to push their agenda. Make sense? So they control the conversation, they control the outcome. CARE, SRM, SRMGI, SAI, TAP, SPICE, these are all public programs spraying nanoparticulate aluminum oxide, barium salts, strontium, mixing chemicals in our atmosphere under the guise of these different programs. SPICE stands for Stratospheric Particle Injections for Climate Engineering. Public program, been going on for a long time. TAP, I fully encourage people to look into this one. It's unbelievable. You might have to have a PhD to really get through this very wordy document. TAP stands for the Tropospheric Aerosol Program. It was released in 2001, just before 9/11. And this document of the Tropospheric Aerosol Program from the Department of Energy, which I'll go over in just a minute, it is disclosure, complete and total disclosure. And in the document, $5 million are spent in 2001 on risk assessment and not being caught, right? And they extrapolate the entire budget of spraying the skies to control our reality, really, but it's the Department of Energy. And a lot of people want to wrap their heads around it, who, what, why, where, when, how. Well, dirty energy is looking to dim the sun so that solar power doesn't proliferate. So, Department of Energy is behind a lot of it. We've also got SAI, Stratospheric Aerosol Injections. In my film, the CIA director talks about that. Talks about this, Stratospheric Aerosol Injections, talks about Solar Radiation Management, SRM. There's SRMGI, Solar Radiation Management Governance Initiative. All these things are different programs doing the same thing. CARE is a NASA program, Charged Aerosol Release Experiment. Okay? NASA, with a budget of $52 million per day, not per year, $52 million per day, no scrutiny, no transparency, and they have a fleet of planes, a fleet of drones, ground-based stations, and they publicly say, yeah, we use the atmosphere as a laboratory, and we mix chemicals, aluminum, barium, strontium. Oh yeah, those are patented geoengineering chemicals, but we do them to make fake clouds and experiment with your atmosphere. These are all ongoing public programs hidden in plain sight. Stratospheric Aerosol Program, March 2001. You can type this into Google with a .pdf at the end, and you've got this PDF that literally shows that they, in 2001, grid these chemicals over the city of Nashville, Tennessee. Not over some countryside or mountains, but they did their research over a populated city. And they extrapolate their budget out for decades, and they spend a lot of money on this, the Department of Energy. All right, and then now, Stranger Things on Netflix will demonize the Department of Energy, but then if I go to someone and says, no, the Department of Energy is behind it, then people can say with their cognitive dissonance, oh, you mean like Stranger Things? Yeah, right. Hidden in plain sight. Now, in the Stratospheric Aerosol Program document, they refer to these condensation trails that we would usually think, oh, that little line coming out of the jet, that's a contrail. Well, that's a polarized argument that is both falsehood. All right? And in this document, the Stratospheric Aerosol Program, they call it a precursor gas. And when you start to put the pieces together, there's just chemicals being mixed in your atmosphere. Some look different than others. Some have a shorter trail, some have a longer trail, but it's all chemicals being mixed. Anytime you see anything coming out of the back of jets, there's chemicals being mixed in your atmosphere. But by polarizing the argument, in both falsehoods, and you're told, oh, which one is it, a chemtrail or a contrail, this is pretty new information to me. Otherwise, I would have included it in my film a couple years ago. The contrail is still a con. It's a precursor gas. They'll lay out different chemicals, or you'll even see two side by side, and you're like, oh, there's a contrail, there's a chemtrail. They seem to be right side by side. It's because they're mixing chemicals in your atmosphere. Control the conversation, control the outcome. So here is an amazing document that really spills the beans on a lot of this. In 2013, there was a civil society meeting on geoengineering. Again, very easily found online, hidden in plain sight, right? And here, civil society actors come together to do what? Well, let's talk about it. What's a civil society actor? It's non-governmental organizations and institutions that manifest the interests and will of citizens. Let's go over that again. Non-governmental bodies that manifest the interests and will of citizens. So what are these geoengineering civil society meeting in 2013 in DC? Well, what are they talking about? Well, they're talking about governing geoengineering. They're talking about the strategy of how they're going to release this to the public and how they're going to do it and how they're going to convince us that it's okay and that we want it. Well, one participant in this roundtable says, society is lousy at strategy. Wow, that's a big statement. And they say later on, we are good at strategy. We can plan how society is going to react. We have models and we've developed their mental pathways through the media and what have you, and this is how they will react. So how should we frame this? And how should we get this into the public eye as something that they need? Well, in the meeting, it says that they will first frame it as a bad idea, a terrible choice, okay? To shift the conversation in productive ways, geoengineering should be characterized publicly as a terrible choice. So first we'll come out in the controlled media and we'll tell the world, we've got a really bad idea, but we may need it. It could harm billions of people, 2014. Well, that doesn't sound like a great idea. And look at this photo. Well, where'd they even get that photo from then if it's not even real yet? If all else fails, man-made global cooling is scary, but it may be necessary. 2015, But I thought I trusted The Economist. And where did they get this photo from NASA if this isn't going on yet? Surveyed scientists debunked chemtrails in 2016. So if you're just reading the paper and you trust your news source, like my grandmother when I was coming out with this film, she referred me to this and said, Matt, chemtrails aren't real. I read it in the USA Today. You should probably just give up on that movie. And I was like, okay, Grandma, I'll let you know when the movie's out and you can watch it. Okay? So the Carnegie Institute asked 77 atmospheric chemists. 76 responded to a survey saying that there was no evidence of a large-scale spraying program. But this survey is so fabricated. If you really look into it with intuition, ask your gut, develop your street smarts, and see both sides of the story. Why would they lie? What could they gain from this? Things like that. So here's the quantifying expert consensus against covert geoengineering, aka chemtrails. Is SLAP a simplest explanation? A stratospheric large-scale atmospheric program is what SLAP stands for. And they just gave it a word, SLAP, which is actually a slap in the face of activists that are seeking truth. And they pretended like this is what activists are calling it. They're calling it SLAP. So they asked these scientists, who I'm sure are, I don't know who they are, because they said that they surveyed 300, but then 77 responded, and 76 out of 77 couldn't say yes to this complicated, I mean, look at this. Is this a yes-no answer? I don't think so, right? So, once the consensus was formed by this survey done by Mick West, a computer engineer who runs a disinformation website called Metabunk, he will debunk anything. He debunks a bicycle that generates electricity. He debunks vaccines being harmful. He debunks fluoride being harmful. He debunks 9/11 being an inside job. He debunks everything. And he was in charge of the study. So then every single major publication in the United States, Forbes magazine, chemtrails are not real, showing a photo of chemtrails. Washington Post, chemtrails aren't real. This is August 16th, August 14th, 2016. Chemtrails are not real. USA Today, scientists disprove airplane chemtrail theory. They show you the photo that you see in your skies and then tell you you're an idiot for thinking that that was something. New York Times, conspiracy theories can be stubborn, particularly in the echo chamber of the internet, right? This is psychological manipulation of the perception of how we see the world. So now people read this, they look at the sky with the grid pattern, and otherwise they would have thought something and been like questioning it and asking their friends and having a conversation. Is there transparency and scrutiny on this topic? Or if that's just water vapor, well, what's the #1 greenhouse gas? And is the water vapor actually causing heating? There's no transparency or scrutiny now that you've been told how to think. And again, it wasn't just the major publications, it was every publication. Scientists disproved chemtrail theory. Chemtrails debunked. Scientists debunked. I had signed up for Google Alerts, and I put in Google Alerts. I want to know every time the word chemtrails comes out on the internet. During this week, everybody was telling me chemtrails are not real. And it was pretty upsetting because I was trying to make a movie telling people chemtrails were real. And then, like I said, my family members are like, Matt, chemtrails aren't real. So mind you, all of these, August 15th, August 16th, August 14th, 2016. 9 days later, David Keefe has a plan. He's going to spray aluminum in the sky and save us. But don't worry, chemtrails are conspiracy, but he's going to do what they said were chemtrails, but he's a good guy. He's going to go and mimic a volcanic eruption, and his experiments are limited trials in the real world, but don't worry, he's got it. He's going to combat the threats of information from conspiracy theorists, and he's going to save us. This guy who happens to have patents on the pop, I mean, he has a carbon remediation company that sucks up carbon. He also, if you saw my movie, you'll know all about him. He's the boogeyman. If anybody wants to point the finger at someone, I mean, this is a good place to start. But just seeing him and his lies can help us start to see, well, why is he lying so bad, and why does he have all this stake in it, and why is he the spokesman? So Bill Gates publicly funds David Keith. Not Bill Gates, Melinda Gates Foundation, but Bill Gates. He is referred to as the sugar daddy of geoengineering. His hidden dreams of geoengineering in 2010, not so hidden, but he's public about this. And I know in the vaccine movement, we've probably learned that we don't necessarily trust this guy, but him being behind it and funding it and being part of this royal society that has patents behind it and what have you, it starts to pique my interest when people that I don't trust as far as I can throw them are telling me that we need to spray our skies with aluminum to block out our life source. Can we go from unintended global warming to climate by design? Geoengineering is going to use sun-blocking aerosols. It's cheap, and it can temporarily counterweight greenhouse gas-driven global warming. Sounds pretty confusing and complicated, but who am I to question the news? Chemtrails is a word derived from chemical trail from aircraft. People started really seeing these in the mid-90s. You go back to 1985, and you don't have these grid-patterned skies. The engines didn't change. If anything, the engines went to these high-bypass turbofan jet engines that don't produce hot air at all. They're fans. So really, if you look into these high-bypass turbofan jet engines that have been outfitted on all these planes to modern day, if anything, we should have had these in the past and not in the present. But we are told what to think, and having anybody conflict with our perception of reality, these mental conflicts occurs, and a contradicted information makes people really upset. And even if it's right in your face, it's very difficult once you've already started to believe in something. Remember when your parents told you Santa Claus wasn't real? I cursed my mom out at that time, but literally, it's upsetting and you don't want to believe it. It's with everything, you know? We're ingrained in our childhood, and with the news telling us one way, how are we going to have Matt Landman come along and hand me a flyer, and I'm just going to believe this random guy on the street, you know? So it's so important for all of us to honor the truth with integrity, to break down these walls of even just asking questions. There's ways to plant these seeds in a very gentle way and meet people where they're at. You don't have to be a raving lunatic to get this information into people's consciousness, to possibly plant those seeds, and then maybe later down the line, those seeds will get fertile and get germinated through the right conditions that you don't have to be there for necessarily. How can they possibly get away with all of this? Well, I've broken it down into basically this. People are indoctrinated, people are compartmentalized, and the ones behind it are on a need-to-know basis. They're told, you're saving the world from global warming, don't tell anybody, it's top secret. And they're okay with that. But everyone wants to wrap their head around the who, what, why, where, when, how, before they can fully grasp it, before they can sink their teeth into something new, and especially before they can convey the message to their friends, families, and peers, okay? If you don't have all the answers, and then you go to someone, and they say who, what, why, where, when, how, and you're like, oh, I don't really know, you don't feel confident conveying this information. How could they possibly do this to us? Indoctrination, compartmentalization, need-to-know basis. So, this irregular pattern of appearance is a very nice introductory way of bringing it to people's perception. Okay, you're outside in your house in Ohio, you don't live next to an airport, and you've gotten these nice days, fluffy clouds, nice days, no clouds, nice days, fluffy clouds, and then all of a sudden an irregular pattern of appearance. You've got planes that just show up on the edge of a storm pattern maybe, or all of a sudden they're zigzagging the sky and it looks like they're about to crash into each other. This is not normal air traffic. Something is going on. It's worth bringing up the conversation. I'll even point to the sky with random people and just say, oh, wow. But then I started to think, well, I don't want to scare people and bring it to them in fear. What's a more positive way? Well, on those beautiful blue skies where there's not a plane in the sky for the whole day, I'll just say to people, oh, they must have closed the airports today or something like that. You know, why aren't there planes in the sky? What happened to all those white lines that were there yesterday? You know, there's ways to bring it to people's attention in a very gentle way. So The research shows that it's aluminum oxide, barium salts, strontium, lithium, cadmium. What happens is people start to ask these questions. What are these lines in the sky? I never saw them before. And then when they're on the edge of a storm pattern, activists, truth seekers have started to collect their rainwater because they're not stupid, and then they send their rainwater in to get tested. And it shows high levels of aluminum, barium, strontium. Well, those are actually the patented ingredients in the weather modification geoengineering programs. So at the end of the day, it starts to make sense that these chemicals are being used, they're coming down in the rainwater, it's easily tested, and then you start to see, wait, aluminum oxide, barium salts, those are patented fire accelerants. All right, so not only can we make it rain, but we're spraying fire accelerants on our forests. We're engineering fires. We're engineering firestorms, exacerbated wind conditions. We're making windstorms over fires. And no one's saying we can make it rain. Professor Hatfield flooded San Diego in 1913. We've been able to make it downpour since, over 100 years ago. But that conversation is not had because otherwise they might lose their control and their agenda would be exposed and what have you. So it's really important for us to know all this. Last-ditch planet hacking plan could keep Earth habitable for longer, okay? So just the details of that headline. Oh, we're going to save ourselves from ourselves with this last-ditch effort. And then look at that. That's a chemtrail right there telling you that this is the last-ditch planet hacking plan. Say that 3 times fast. Okay, so rest in peace, Ted Gunderson. He is in the film. He was really exposing this stuff, and he spoke out against the aerosol spraying. He was an FBI chief. He was very outspoken. He died mysteriously. His heart exploded. And he's a hero in my eyes, and everyone needs to know about this guy, Ted Gunderson. Kylie Jenner, not much of a hero, but she does ask questions. She has more followers on Twitter than anyone on Earth. And in this post, she asked some very important questions. Why did I see 75 planes spraying things on my 15-minute drive? Does this have anything to do with the honeybees dying off? Why are some days normal with no planes spraying and others look like this? Who is responsible? She spelled responsible wrong, but it's okay. She's asking questions and millions of people are listening, but then she stopped because I think she got spoken to. But again, she's just a normal person, and it's very normal to ask these questions, all of these questions. Am I the only one seeing this? 1973. So the perception has been shifted, but if you're old enough, you will know that weather modification, rain making, even getting out to vote on what weather you want, it was commonplace. It was mainstream. And cloud seeding was a fact, all right? But now it's not discussed because global warming, climate change, fires, these agendas, all these things are fear-based. If there was a solution on the hope side of this, then we would see the polarity and honor the truth and ask for rain over forest fires. But we don't know the truth because it's been silenced, and we don't have these old newspapers anymore. How many people have gone to the library and looked up this microfiche like we used to? Nobody. We've got smartphones telling us how to think now. This was an experiment, Operation Large Area Coverage, where different chemicals were sprayed over San Francisco. It was basically biowarfare to see how many people would get sick and to see how much would spread and whatnot. But all these different experiments are ongoing and public. In the film FrankenSkies, we talk about St. Louis being sprayed with radioactive cadmium, I believe, to see how many children in the projects would die. You know, this is on public U.S. soil, on the public, with no scrutiny, no transparency. And when the U.S. turned rain into a weapon of war in Vietnam, the international community came together after this Operation Popeye. The entire community came together, the global community, and they all voted, no, you cannot use weather as a weapon. Because if I start using weather as a weapon and you start using weather as a weapon, everybody's going to just be using weather as a weapon against one another, and it's all going to be chaos. So the world knew about this enough that we publicly flooded the Ho Chi Minh Trail as a war weapon back in Vietnam. And then 125-0, the General Assembly votes in 1974, weather war ban approved. So if we all knew we could so easily manipulate the weather in 1974, you know, imagine the technology that has come out since then. We can make it rain with lasers now like that, and we don't. Well, we make floods and whatnot, but we don't make it rain over drought-stricken areas. We don't make it rain over forest fires. We don't use it, and we don't tell the public that we can do it. Dennis Kucinich, there's this bill introduced, and in this bill in 2001, he uses the word chemtrails. 2001, he had to remove the word before the bill got passed, but this is a known thing in certain circles that these chemtrails do exist. He's actually saying the word in a bill, HR 297, House bill. NASA, like I said, Charged Aerosol Release Experiment. This is a NASA photo, and they call these clouds noctilucent clouds, a new cloud name. And they admit, yeah, we're mixing barium, strontium, aluminum. We make these experimental clouds through our CARE program. Hidden in plain sight. No scrutiny, no transparency. Not chemtrails, don't worry. And even this document from the Air Force owning the weather by 2025. I think they're way ahead of schedule, and this document is very revealing, and it shows their intentions right there. What is aerotoxic syndrome? Well, in 1999, all of a sudden, cabin air in airplanes was so contaminated that flight attendants were getting very sick. Pilots were getting very sick. They had to coin a new term, aerotoxic syndrome. This term did not exist prior to 1999. And like I said, mid-90s, they started spraying heavy. In the mid-80s, nobody has family photos of these grid patterns over their home. Mid-90s, these grid patterns show up, and all of a sudden, we've got aerotoxic syndrome at cabin level. President Ahmadinejad, this is in the film FrankenSkies, he says, they're actually using weather as a weapon. Excuse me, we're still doing this. They're creating drought. They're not letting rain come to my country. I'm well aware. He even says, my people came to me, and I called them crazy, but I did the research, and now it is self-evident that the United States is using weather as a weapon against us. And if you see the politics and you see what's going on and you know that Iran doesn't have a Federal Reserve or a private bank and all these different agendas, the agenda is to go to war with Iran, but they're slowly but surely attacking them covertly until we actually get there. But I'm not going to predict the future. I hope we do not go to war with Iran. I think that's very bad if we do. So this is unbelievable. Hurricane Joaquin, this was about 5 years ago. In the first time in human history, a hurricane develops what they call an atmospheric river fire hose. They had to give it a name, because it didn't exist before they experimented with this hurricane and directionalized an arm. So the hurricane keeps spinning, and it actually loses power. Look at this. There's not an arm directly, but this arm created a, quote, 1,000-year flood. The 1,000-year flood hit South Carolina and created mass flooding. People died, and people said, oh, that's just an atmospheric river fire hose. Don't worry about it. But they're testing their tools, and they're testing them on us. And not just us, all right? There's cities in India that are on the verge of devastation. Millions of people could possibly die from lack of water. And when you start to put the pieces together and you see this nefarious agenda unfolding and you see that we are here as bringers of truth and all these systems are related, okay? EMF and glyphosate breaks down the blood-brain barrier, and then we've got nanotoxins in the air that get into our brains. It's all connected. You can't just be one thing. My mentor used to always tell me, you can't be half pregnant with the truth, okay? Either you're pregnant or you're not. So don't tell me that you're just one little thing and you're going to ignore the rest, because you're not honoring the truth with integrity. We need to honor all these things. Otherwise, people will keep saying, no, chemtrails are a conspiracy. I'm a 9/11 activist, but I get the flu shot. And hurricanes are now moving slower, and that's a big problem because they're causing mass devastation over cities because they happen to just stop over Houston. Oh, that never happened before, but because the National Geographic has primed us, it's now a fact. Hurricanes are now moving slower. Okay, you see what I mean about this cultivation of discernment, of intuition? I don't have to sit here and tell you this is lies. Think for yourself. Maybe it's a lie, maybe it's not, but see two sides of it. We live in a realm of a world of polarity, of duality, but we're only being shown falsehoods in a lot of these situations. So here's what happens. They spray from jets these micro, nano-sized aluminum, and then ground-based stations use intersecting radio frequencies to superheat the sky to near the temperature of the sun. Okay, they create high-pressure waves, they create drought, they create high-pressure bubbles that steer jet streams, they create heat waves. Okay, so when I witness a heat wave created by this, and then I see the headline saying, global warming is here. We all need to be worried. What are we going to do about global warming? It's your carbon that you're exhaling. Don't you feel bad about these polar bears? I start to really think about, well, what about superheating the atmosphere to near the temperature of the sun with radio frequency technology created by Tesla? Why aren't we talking about that? So these antenna arrays, this first one is HARP. It's in Alaska. Ilana in her presentation was talking about this. These are radio frequency antenna that can pick a massive portion of the atmosphere anywhere on Earth, like hundreds of square miles even. And they intersect radio frequency waves to microwave the sky. And first they lay out chemicals, aluminum, barium, strontium, mix the chemicals together, and then zap them with high voltage electricity, and now these stations have been shrunk down into things called NEXRAD stations, and they're all over the world. They're called ionospheric heaters because they heat the ionosphere. So if we're heating the ionosphere with crazy Tesla tech, but you're telling me that my carbon exhalation is the one doing it, I start to ask questions, why isn't this being talked about? And here it is. These little golf balls show up, and then these storms happen, right? Scrutiny, transparency, this needs to be in the public eye. Tesla said if we can control the resonant system on Earth, we can control the entire mental system of mankind. All right, so as we know, Tesla's technology was taken from him, and it was worked on. I mean, this is a long time ago. Our government, our shadow government has been playing with his information for years and has somehow not used it to our advantage and used it against us. But what else is new? I mean, people like to say, oh, how could they do that? And I'm like, do you know there's fluoride in the water and vaccines are criminal and like the entire agenda and like, all these different things. I'm like, well, what? They wouldn't do that though. So I like to tell them, well, let's at least look at the patents. People patent things when they have the technology, not because they have an idea in their head. They don't want the technology taken from them by their enemy or whoever, so they patent it. Rockets releasing barium into the upper atmosphere. Barium is one of the constituents that's mixed with aluminum and strontium and used by NASA and what have you. 1974, barium released rockets. 1974. 1975, powder contrail generation, light scattering pigment powders. This agenda has been rolling out for quite some time, okay? It's not a new thing. The patents tell the story. A method of forming cloud of artificial ionization above the Earth by initially heating the resonant plasma at a desired altitude with electromagnetic radiation having a frequency approximately the same of that of the ambient plasma. Creation of artificial ionization clouds above the Earth, 1999. Stratospheric seeding for reduction of global warming, 1991. Aluminum tolerant genetics, 2009. So these aluminum-resistant seeds and different aluminum-resistant genetics, they must be having some conversations with the people who are spraying the aluminum in the sky, and they're all working in tandem to get their patents in because they know what's upon us. I mean, why isn't this being discussed? So the patents really tell a story. We've got enhanced aerial delivery systems in 2010. We've got all these different aerosol distribution methods, and the patents go on and on and on. For the naysayers, I say, just look at the patents. Just look at the patents and look at the sky and test your rainwater, and let's put 2 and 2 together. Turn off Fox News while we're at it. And another patent showing where these ripples in the sky come from. So there was a meeting in Chicago in 2017. This meeting was for the first annual research roundtable on global climate change governance geoengineering. And in this meeting with Warren Buffett, these very rich globalists come together and they claim they have the exclusive rights to saving the planet, and what they say goes. They ask questions like, what role will public perception and opinion play in a governance regime for geoengineering? They're coming together behind closed doors to ask these questions. They nominate who's going to be there, who's going to be representing the world of the scientific community. They call themselves a regime, which I find really shady. And then they ask, what role will public perception and opinion play? Like, are they going to wake up to what we're doing, or are we going to be able to completely brainwash them? What's the role of public perception going to play when we create this solar geoengineering governance regime where they claim they have exclusive rights to launch full-scale deployment, is what they're calling it, full-scale deployment of global geoengineering. So they want to launch all at once, everywhere, and dim the sky all at once, everywhere, and that's what they're planning to do. So it's really important that we get the truth out there. I submitted a paper. I hired a PhD. I submitted a paper. I said we have the human right to a say in environmental decision making. We have the human right to a safe and living environment. There's Rio declarations. There's all these different human rights that we have in all these different treaties, and they're all being violated by select few rich people. Warren Buffett, Bill Gates. We already talked about David Keith. So they claim exclusive rights to saving the planet because they say that the patents in geoengineering have gotten so complex that they can't go through patent law, and they just need to be pushed into the public. And because they have the patents and the technology and that they can save us from ourselves, they have the right to dim our sky. And they say, look, we've applied for patents. They don't even go through. Look at all these patents that are coming out. The number of climate engineering patents have gone through the roof. So the geoengineering patent land grab has already begun, and they use this as an excuse to sidestep the patent process, launch full-scale deployment under their self-proclaimed regime to dictate who on Earth gets sunlight and who does not. Interesting. So they claim that the geoengineering future, which is like the opposite really here, this little zipper represents a geoengineering future, and the zipper is going to make us have nice blue skies. But how do we get nice blue skies? By spraying aluminum in the sky. It's kind of the opposite. Like, we have the blue skies, we're going this way. It's all meant to confuse us and to get us so not in alignment with truth that we're not resonating with this truth. And I firmly believe that when we're in resonance with truth, all these other truths become self-evident. We're empowered and we're inspired with the truth. We can find unity here. We can all come together on that, under that umbrella. But if we're living these falsehoods and we're confused, we're in fear, essentially. But still, they'll let the truth slip a little bit in a form of disclosure, right? Scientists are skeptical of the global warming crisis. Only 36% of geoscientists and engineers believe that humans are creating the global warming crisis. So if this is actually going on, how can we jump the gun and spray aluminum in the sky if it's not even 100% agreed upon, you know? So first we normalize through Hollywood. Look at these skies in these Pixar films. Okay, so the children growing up, they don't realize they're being completely programmed and normalized to a sky that was not in our childhood. Oh, it goes on and on and on. The movie Ants, the movie Dinosaurs, the movie Cars, the car tracks are chemtrails in the sky. Almost every Pixar movie, if you start to look at it through the right filter, you can see the propaganda is so deep that our children are being conditioned to accepting so many things. And Disney is mostly the culprit, but there's some really nefarious forces controlling the perception of our youth, all the while giving them endocrine disruptors and screens of blue light and flashing screens that disrupt the neurological systems, and LED lights that flash on and off 10,000 times per second, and a blue light that disrupts their endocrine system, their circadian rhythm. And there's so many predatory things that we all need to honor, because why are we here? In my opinion, it's truth and it's the children. That's it. And we need to honor the truth and the children with integrity and not turn a blind eye to them when we know that the children are under attack. In so many ways, the mind and in reality. So chemtrails to be recognized as a new type of cloud. Wow. BBC. Engineering the climate or deploying disaster. Applying just war theory to geoengineering. You see that little line that's dimming the sky? That's actually a blanket of nanoparticulate aluminum that causes dementia, but they make a little line there to make it look very nice and simple for us. Blocking the sun to save crops from rising temperatures will actually harm them. Duh. Study looks into the belief that chemtrails are real. And then they say 10% of Americans believe that chemtrail conspiracy is completely true. 20% to 30% believe it's somewhat true. Startling new study. And the whole purpose of this new study is to fragment us, make us feel like that the truthers are all alone, make the masses feel like, oh, those people over there, divide and conquer, and then someone comes and tries to talk to you about chemtrails, geoengineering, whatnot, and then the people on the other side, even though the awakening is happening and there's so many more truthers out there than ever before, we'll be told by our social media, we'll be told by the media that it's not happening. Well, why? Because the revolution will not be televised. Why do so many people still believe in chemtrails? You see the propaganda. Look at the photo. You see the propaganda, how they manipulate your perception. We live in a world of polarity, duality, but they only show us the falsehoods. The strange role of chemtrails in the debate about fixing climate change. You see how confusing this is? Like, what are we looking at? And is chemtrails going to fix climate change? Because I thought chemtrails weren't real. The bad idea that we need. So right after that meeting that I talked about before, the symposium of civil society actors saying that society is lousy at strategy, we need to introduce it as a bad idea, immediately the media came out and said, we have a bad idea for you, right? But eventually they spin it and say it's a necessary evil, with photos like this saying it's either that or this, and the left side is evidently a geoengineered world. The idea that we will science our way out of climate change is dangerous. Well, that doesn't look like a very healthy place to be, a blowing up Earth. What Earth Day means when humans possess planet-shaping powers. Now, they integrate this like rainbow on Earth, and then they start to tell us that we can change and shape the Earth. It's all confusion tactics, but the media, every single conglomerate, every single possible media outlet, okay? Oh, I trust this news source, I don't trust this news source. They're all in on it. They get paid big money to confuse and trick you into not becoming an activist and not speaking your truth on this because, oh, I'll be demonized by my peers, etc. It may be feasible and affordable. A lot of these articles go into the cost of it so that you think, oh, well, it's cheap and, it's important. This is an article by David Keith saying it's dangerous, right? He's the one, he's the proponent. But first he came out because he was at that civil society meeting, he's an actor. He's one of the actors that manifest the will of the public, civil society actor in civilian society, acting like a civilian, but he's an actor. getting paid big money to manifest the will of the public. So first he's told, well, we're going to introduce it as a horrible idea, but make sure you tell him it's cheap. Sorry, folks. Chemtrails are BS. They are just trying to confuse you, okay? So here we've got annoyed scientists published study on chemtrail conspiracies. Sorry, folks, chemtrails are false. Aerosols can significantly cool down the planet. Aerosols could be used to alleviate global warming. Scientists consider new ways to shield the Earth. Antacid for the atmosphere. So then they start talking about spraying salt and antacid in the atmosphere, all the while spraying aluminum, all the while telling us it's not going on. Confusion, confusion, confusion. And they won't come out and say, you're going to lose your sun, your plants aren't going to grow, you're not going to get vitamin D. They first come out subtly and say, we're going to lose the night sky. Astronomy is down the drain. It's a subtle conditioning. Look at it for what it is. So this is like conditioning the public. Oh, I'm not an astronomer. They're going to be spraying during the sun too. It's solar radiation management. They're not managing the starlight. Playing God? Obama. We can blame Obama. This is right as Obama was leaving office. Oh, Obama signs off on it, but he's going to fight climate change. So already right there, just this little headline. See all the manipulation there? Geoengineering to fight climate change. Well, I know climate change is bad. If the sea level is going to rise, we're all going to be underwater soon. So we need to do something. Federal green light. Trump presidency opens the door for planet-hacking geoengineering experiments. So this is kind of coming into the real world, okay? So what exactly is geoengineering? It's spraying aluminum from planes, just like we've been seeing for decades. I mean, let's say it for how it is. Aerosols are going to be sprayed next year, but scientists warn the results could be catastrophic. And 12 new clouds are introduced to the world because they all look like chemtrails, and we got to give these things names, right? Otherwise, people will become suspicious. But give them a name, give them a stamp. The stamps came out with the names on them too, and put them into cartoons, and no one will be none the wiser. Maybe 1%, but we'll convince those 1% that they're all alone, and they quell the awakening every step of the way. And I'll literally go to friends, families, and peers, and they'll say, no, there's a name for that, Matt. I'm like, just because there's a name for it doesn't mean it's not toxic metals. Are we about to be told chemtrails are real? Harvard says emissions could save the Earth. Look at this photo. Look at this manipulation of your mind, of your perception of reality. New clouds introduced, including plain vapor trails. Well, were there vapor trails before? Why are you deciding to all of a sudden come out with names for these things now? And what do they call them? Homo mutatis. I post this on Facebook. On Facebook, I've got 50,000 followers. I get censored severely. Every time I post this, they go, good one, Matt. Did you make that yourself, or did you pay someone to make that? And I go, I didn't make that. It's not a joke. And people laugh, and they go, oh, yeah, haha. This is not a joke. This is actually a real article. And they say Homo mutatis clouds are a new thing. Harvard scientists launching $20 million geoengineering study in the United States. The propaganda goes on. And here's the new clouds. And they give them these great names. This one is a circumhorizontal arc. This is a fire rainbow, not to be confused with cloud iridescence. This circumhorizontal arc only happens at certain elevation in certain parts of the Earth, 58 degrees or greater, and whatever, the specific angle and different latitudes. They make it so confusing that when people read it and they get all this information in their head, now they're empowered with this falsehood. And because they read the article and because they trust it, now that's what they believe. They've got these facts. They've memorized circumhorizontal arc. They've memorized the latitude and longitude that these things can happen. And don't let it get confused with fire rainbows or cloud iridescence, because now they know what is what. Like this, just like that. And then they'll just, even, like, in this age of falsehoods, it's a slippery slope. All right, you believe one lie, and then they pile another lie on top, and then they believe that you're able to just keep getting lied to. So then they come out with another name, cloud streets. This isn't even a recognized meteorological. This cloud streets didn't even get a stamp, right, at the post office. But now the BBC can say, oh, no, no, no. Don't worry, what you were seeing were cloud streets. And because the media told you, it's God. And they're really cool, by the way. Don't forget it. Fire rainbows, they're really cool. And we also call them homogenitus. Nice and complicated. Homogenesis, homomutatus, which one is it? So, we're going to dim the sun. And we're ready to govern it. Wait a second, it's 2017 and they're governing geoengineering. I thought you just told me that chemtrails weren't real and now we're all of a sudden governing something? Weren't we going to talk about this publicly, maybe debate it, maybe get the international community involved, maybe vote on it, maybe yes, no, which scientist is on board? Are we really going to dim the sun with metals and government? But global warming is unstoppable without geoengineering. And there's machines that can darken the sky to stop climate change. Look at the imagery. And it's dangerous, but we can fix climate change. Keyword, these trigger words, climate change, global warming. Dangerous, but don't worry. Can we engineer our way out of global warming? This is the Earth that they claim they want to make for us. Does this look like a planet that you want to live on? No. So they tell us they want to mimic a volcano because the volcanic ash goes up in the atmosphere and shrouds the atmosphere. So they want to make it sound natural. We're just going to mimic a volcano, but instead of using sulfuric dust that volcanoes do, we're going to use nanoparticulate aluminum and mix it with strontium and barium. And don't worry, we're in charge. And it's just a volcano. But once we start, we can't stop. Once we start, we can't stop. And we started 20 years ago, but we didn't tell you. It's a very, very bad idea, but we may have to do it anyways. And this guy is going to be the one doing it. Trust him. And this is a literal quote from him. It's an empirical question how people will actually react to knowledge about this. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard. It's more like free riding on our grandchildren. Well, at least he said the truth, finally. If we turn down the sun a little bit, it turns everything into more balance. It's like, turn down the sun? Who are you? Who are you to be in charge of turning down my sun? It's official. The sky will be sprayed in geoengineering experiment blocking sun for climate change. Well, I'll tell you what, this experiment was supposed to happen in Tucson, Arizona, so I moved to Arizona, and I had a conference leading up to this event. And I had a conference, a protest, a concert. I went on Coast to Coast AM right before it with 2 million live listeners, packed the conference hall, and the entire city of Tucson knew not that chemtrails were real, but that an experiment was to happen over their sky, over their city, spraying aluminum in front of the sun. And that's all I did, was just tell the world that an experiment was going to happen over their city. And guess what? They never had that experiment. So here's the big experiment. It's supposed to happen. They're going to do this stratospheric engineering experiment. It's going to violate UN decisions, but we have to have it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it out of a balloon. We're going to spray, like they call it a strato cruiser. And they gave it a special name, SCOP-X, another name, not TAP, not SLAP, not CARE, not SRM, not SRMGI, not whatever. They called it SCOP-X, Stratospheric Controlled Perturbation Experiment, because they were going to perturbate the atmosphere with a strato cruiser. But they never did it. And it was through Worldview Enterprises. It was in Tucson, and he wanted to spray aluminum. He said he was going to experiment with spraying diamond dust, but he said diamonds are pretty expensive. He said he was going to experiment spraying mirrors, but he didn't know if the mirrors were going to stay up in space. He was going to experiment spraying sulfur, but he didn't think that was going to work because it's dangerous and it globs together and falls out of the atmosphere. But he said also in this experiment we will be using variable nanoparticulate sizes of aluminum. So we're going to try aluminum this size and aluminum this size and aluminum this size. We think the aluminum might work. It's like, no kidding, dementia's going through the roof. Look at the skies. You've been doing it for a while. And it's risky. But you see the balloon, it actually looks, look, the sunlight's bouncing off. Pretty picture. See the volcano? It's kind of like that. Or they might use salt. So they might just throw salt in the sky. It'll look like this, but that's not real, and they might just use salt. So don't worry. It might be salt instead. So maybe just table salt. Out of Tucson, they might just use table salt. You know, don't worry. We're going to do this experiment. Probably going to use aluminum, but we might use salt. So don't worry. Salt's harmless. And Bill Gates is funding this chemical cloud to stop global warming. So, should it be done? Public good. It's a public good. So then it should be done, obviously, if it's a public good and it's up against these big problems that we're facing. So this article just came out. Completely normalized now through the media. Congress is going to spend when Congress says publicly they're going to spend $4 million, it's probably more like $4 trillion completely, to be honest, in my opinion. But this is public. This is this year, 2020, right? Right now it's only February 2020, so this is 1 month ago. 1 month ago, geoengineering got a lift from Congress. Nobody's the wiser. People scroll through their timeline. Oh, cool, geoengineering got a lift. We need to bring this to our friends, our family, and our peers. I know after this presentation you might want to go scream it from the rooftops. Just honor the truth with integrity, bring the conversation up, and play your part. Okay? Not everyone has to be like hardcore about anything. Just honor the truth. And when someone says chemtrails, contrails, just say, well, actually, have you seen the movie FrankenSkies? Whatever. You don't have to promote my movie. Do it how you want, but let's plant these seeds together, because it's not illegal yet to think. Now, but let's remember, and I firmly am suspicious of this fire agenda, the Australian normalization of fires last year. Nobody talked about making it rain over Australia. And I do have this fear, because activists have been wondering all this time, why are they spraying over these forests in Northern California? There's not even people here. I thought they were experimenting on people. What's going on? They've been spraying aluminum oxide, barium salts on our forests for decades for an agenda. Okay, they control the drought. They're creating drought. It should be raining right now, by the way. If you haven't lived here before, I'm familiar with the Pacific Northwest and the jet stream. We should be getting rain now. We're experiencing drought. I predict, and I'm not going to make any predictions, but the fires need to be addressed, and not by creating windstorms over top of fires and shutting off our power through PG&E, who is Enron, who's a very shady company, right? We need to know that we can put these fires out with the same geoengineering that's causing these fires. Okay? So the gravity of the situation is not to be put in a place of fear, but we have ancestors and our entire family history. They got us to where we're at, all right? They fought for us, they died for us, and they honored the truth, all right? So what are we going to do? Are we going to pass down the truth to the next generation, or just say, oh, let them deal with it? You see what they're up against? The future of humanity is in our hands as the bringers of truth, okay? So we honor it, we meet people where they're at, and we do what we can. Please check out my website, actualactivist.com, where I wanted to bring together everyone under this umbrella of truth. Talks about 5G, talks about fluoride, talks about chemtrails, talks about GMO, and all these programs are actually interlinked. When you learn about fluoride, and that fluoride is a byproduct of the aluminum industry, and that once you get fluoride and aluminum in your system, there's a chemical reaction, and fluoride will actually escort the aluminum past your blood-brain barrier. It's all interconnected. If you've seen the video of aluminum and mercury mixing together, which are both in the flu shot, aluminum, little drop, mercury, a little drop, and this chemical reaction goes for hours and hours and hours. I was thinking about showing the video today. It's very revealing, and these toxins are very important, and it's a slow and steady burn. So it all started here for me and my activism. I hosted the first annual Global Chemtrail Summit in Vancouver, Canada. A year before this, I devoted my life to activism, to chemtrails especially, and I hosted the first conference. I brought together activists. Ilana was there to witness that. And after that, it was just me running every day, every single day, passing out a flyer, refining my approach, meeting people where they're at, making the movie, having other conferences, and doing what I can. So please check out the film FrankenSkies, The Lies in the Skies Exposed, because real lies, real lies, real lies, and real skies. If you want a copy and you haven't gotten one, I'm happy to give you a copy of FrankenSkies. Please, if you want to do a film screening, share it, do what you want with it. I tried not to narrate it or really put my opinion in there too much. I really just wanted people to see that after 10 minutes into the movie, when the movie starts at 1920, and it goes 1920, 1930 through the historical chronological timeline of weather modification history, if you're not 10 minutes into the movie saying, can we make it rain? Then you're not thinking for yourself. We can all do something, okay? But there's ways to go about it and ways to not. And activism has kind of been hijacked, and the way that we go about things needs to be very well calculated, but we can all do things in honor of truth, all right? Again, actualactivist.com, artwork by my good friend Nicole Vitrano. She's a graphic designer. She helped with this. You can do what you can, all right? I'm not saying go get a tattoo, but this guy in Albuquerque, he got a tattoo. And he said, I'm playing my part. People see my tattoo, they ask questions. This young man in Seattle, he made his truck like this and sent me photos of it. And he said, I'm in traffic and people are honking and saying, great work, man. He's playing his part, doing the little bit that he can. Because if all of us do a little bit, we can make massive strides. This is a man in France. He made these stickers. He said, Matt, you inspired me so much. Let me send you a coffee cup. He sent me a coffee cup with these stickers. He puts these stickers everywhere. This is me. I made this. I'm not proud of committing small crimes, but whatever. It's just a little graffiti, and I think it delivers a message, so that's a little thing that I do if I have to. But I also make buttons, and that's just something that I do. And the buttons have gotten around the world, and people still say, hey, look, I've got your button from your first annual Chemtrails Summit in 2016. I continue to make buttons and flyers and do what I can to play my part, but I've gotten over trying to do it all. I'm much happier being grounded, focusing on my health, focusing on solutions. But look at this young man, okay? He's honoring the truth. He's being inspirational. I posted this video of this photo on Facebook. It went viral, thousands of shares. He has inspired and empowered more people at the age of 12 or something than he could ever imagine just by holding a sign. Amazing. It's amazing. So, we live in a world of frequency, and the fear is where they want us, because in fear, we are helpless, we are hopeless, we are docile, we are not going to speak our truth, and we are just going to be worried. But what is the flip side of truth? It's fear, and the opposite of fear is truth. And in truth, we find knowledge equals power, activism, empowerment, inspiration, all these amazing things. And when you're empowered by truth, you can honor the truth with solutions. So one of these is protection through mineralization. Now, a lot of us are mineral deficient. It only takes a few chemicals to grow our crops nowadays: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So selenium and boron and magnesium and even plant-based aluminum, okay? This is real. If you get a mineral supplement from like Utah that has all this wide spectrum of minerals, aluminum, barium, and strontium are on there. But this is plant-derived, okay? It's completely different. But our ancestors, when they grew a winter squash or something in rich soil, there was gold, silver, all these minerals, a whole list of the noble elements, of protective minerals, of magnesium, all these things in there. If we're mineralized, we're not absorbing toxins from the environment. So that's one way to protect ourselves, is through education, understanding, and if we're up to speed on our minerals, if we're not calcium deficient, we're not absorbing radioactive strontium from the air because our bodies think it's calcium, okay? Also, magnesium. Magnesium is a very important building block. We all need it. Did you know 1 molecule of sugar takes 54 molecules of magnesium to process? So we take in our sugar, we don't even know this fact, we're not up to speed on our magnesium, and then we're absorbing toxins from the environment, hoping to get up to speed on our magnesium. The central atom in the chlorophyll molecule is magnesium. So get your leafy greens, get up to speed on your magnesium, and you're not absorbing these toxins. But there's all these other minerals. Like I said, we get up to speed on our minerals, and we can stop absorbing these problems. Eat organic, get educated on these things, learn about chelation and detox. You can go get your hair and blood sampled, see what you're heavy in, and learn ways to get it out. There's chelation methods that are really simple, or they're even more aggressive, but consult your natural path. You can learn about spirulina, chlorella, food-grade diatomaceous earth, zeolite, cilantro. And again, I grew the cilantro in coriander. I mean, like, these simple truths just to pass on are so empowering. When I went on Coast to Coast AM, 2 million listeners, and I said potatoes grew potatoes, so many people reached out to me and were like, oh my God, I didn't know that, Matt. I bet you a lot of people in here didn't know that either. And it's just empowering information, because why was that hidden from me? Why didn't I know that? Oh my gosh, that's really important information. I can actually grow my own food and stuff once I learn that this is the seed that you just put in the, it's very simple. And mitigation through applying your knowledge. Okay, there's aluminum in the air. Well, does that mean you're going to go get an aluminum flu shot and then aluminum deodorant and then aluminum this and aluminum that? No, you're going to avoid aluminum, right? And avoid fluoride, because fluoride is a byproduct of the aluminum industry. They bond together. They have chemical reactions in your brain. You avoid the fluoride as much as you possibly can, and take steps towards getting it out of your local supply and bring that awareness to the people. So many people think, oh, it's good for your teeth, but it's not. It goes right into your stomach, all right? So there's these simple truths that can be revealed, and then if you don't have the fluoride in your system, then you're a million steps ahead on the aluminum exposure and whatnot. Okay, so this is the last slide. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with me, and I really want to bring this into a positive place, but I want us to acknowledge where we're at. We're spiritual beings. We're literally like light beings, and we want things to happen so fast, okay? And we'll throw up our arms, because if someone contacts me and says, what should I do about activism? I say, baby steps towards big goals. And I've got this friend in New York, Joey, and he says, look, I don't want baby steps. You tell me when you have the bazooka, I'll pull the trigger, and I'll shoot down the chemtrail planes. But until then, baby steps towards big goals is not what I want. People are programmed with this hero mentality. Superman, Spider-Man, all these things are going to come and save you. And either you're the hero or you're not. But we live in a very slow world where these agendas have been unraveling for a century. And we're finally waking up to them. So we expect everyone to be able to come together and wake up so fast, and then let's do this all together. No, we need to introduce the truth to our friends, family, and peers, meet them at their level, and slowly but surely, the awakening will speak for itself. So Malcolm X, he said, the greatest mistake I ever made was trying to, you have to wake people up, basically, sorry. He was trying to get people organized that weren't awake, all right? And it's our goal to learn from our past, to learn from him, and to introduce this truth in a nice, calm, not fear-based manner, bring it to the world in our own way. If you can knit well, knit for truth, right? Everyone can play their part in helping the next generation thrive. Thank you so much for having me. Hi.
Oh,
Yes.
here's the first one. I got the mic. I don't understand. Why are they doing this? What's their end goal?
That is a question that I get all the time. And everyone wants to know who, what, why, where, when, how. The why, first off, it's hard to put you in their shoes. Okay, so we want to see it from our perspective, right? And then we'll say, well, why are they doing it? Why are they doing it for themselves? Well, they have a much bigger nefarious agenda. I can't answer that question exactly, the why, because I'm not them. I'm not a sociopath that wants to kill half the population on Earth or whatever it is. The why, in a long, control. Okay, they want control. When we're controlled, then, they're on a power trip. They like to control us, basically. But I mean, it's deeper than that. It's spiritual. It's, there's all these things and whatnot. I think also on a spiritual level that it's to quell this rising frequency of not just truth, but spiritual ascension or whatever's on our horizon that no one can stop, but this nefarious group thinks that they can by cutting off our life source and putting aluminum in our bodies, and then there's like a transhumanism agenda and all these other things that can roll out when there's 5G antennas everywhere and the blood-brain barrier is compromised and we've got nanoparticulates in our brain and whatnot. But the why is control, in my opinion. But that's a tricky one, and I get asked that a lot, and it's kind of up to us to kind of build that. Yeah, what's up? There's someone over here with the microphone.
I'm bringing the mic around, so just
Hi.
everyone will get a chance to ask your question.
Thanks.
So don't worry about it.
Matt, this was really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So there's two things I'm struggling with here. You know, if I talk to a friend of mine about this and say, you know about the chemtrails, they'll say, like, I've probably thought about, I talked to you earlier from when I was little, oh, they're just vapor trails.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, I think it would be good to know what's actually in the supposed real exhaust of a plane. It's just petroleum based probably. It shouldn't have all this other crap that's in there that you're bringing out that they're spraying.
Mm-hmm.
Number one. So it'd be good to know that. Then I'd have something to counter them with. Yeah, that's what should be in there, but that's not what's not in there, right? So the second thing is, I'd like to give the benefit of the doubt, possibly, to people like Bill Gates and the others that are promoting this stuff to, that they actually believe they're doing something good for the earth, or.
But you're trying to put yourself in the shoes of a sociopath. Are you a sociopath?
I hope not.
I don't think that you are. So at the end of the day, I would like to hope that their intentions are good as well. But after all of it put together, including 5G and all the research that says that 5G is actually harmful and no research saying that it's safe, and then fluoride, and then GMO, and then vaccines, and eventually I start to think, well, if they're lying about that, they're lying about that, they're lying about that, they're lying about that, they're lying. I mean, it seems nefarious at the end. And then to answer your question, 1 second, please. There's high bypass turbofan jet engines. They're fans. They're just fans.
Oh, so there's no heat.
Yeah, there's no heat.
So on a regular plane, nothing comes out?
Hot air. I mean, air. not hot air, but just fanned air. But that, see, all of this starts to become like, oh, well, I can disprove you with this. And you don't need to become a scientist, okay? Like, there's certain things to focus on to kind of just bring it to light, which is like, all this BS I've gone through. Becoming an aeronautical engineer and analyzing engines and jet fuel and all this stuff, you're going to lose it because there's so many disinformation campaigns and all these things. It's tough, I know, but sometimes you can just lead the horse to water and save your breath kind of thing. But everyone can be reached a certain way. And it's like, I was speaking to a woman earlier who wanted to show the movie to her husband. Sometimes, and that's the point of why I made FrankenSkies, is hopefully you can just, here, watch this, please, and go from there. But it's tough, right? How do you tell someone who injects their child with vaccines that they're causing that autoimmune disease that they have? They're in knee deep in this like indoctrination already. It's tough, right? So you say, well, these ingredients are really harmful, and what about SIDS? And I just find certain little things. So really quick, so for GMO, it's very complicated, genetically modified organisms and all this. What I say to people with this is, did you know that the plants are genetically modified so that they can withstand being sprayed with poison, glyphosate? If they weren't genetically modified, they would shrivel up and die. That's very simple, right? I try to keep it simple. I went to business school and then I got the master's degree, and they kept hammering this in, which seems like common sense, the KISS principle, K-I-S-S, keep it simple, stupid. But once you start to, like, all this confusion tactics, then you're playing their game, you know what I mean?
To answer her question, I think, is chemtrails are a lot like vaccines and cancer and so forth. There's too many people in the world. Richard Pan is a homicidal psychopath, same as Bill Gates and them. They get together and they try to lower the population of the world. Mm-hmm. Bill Gates does not vaccinate his own 3 children.
Right, and Steve Jobs didn't have his kids on iPads.
And neither does the royal family.
Right, right, exactly. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Matt. That was fantastic.
And really quick, I also like to kind of take a spiritual side, and I see it as good and evil on earth. There's duality and polarity to everything. So I see myself as good, and I see them as not good.
But tell us how you really feel. No, no. I just wanted to ask you, so people know, to mention what's in your hat and the other things that could help people.
Yeah, I'm lining clothes with this silver material from Asia that deflects radiation from EMF radiation. So sparrow is a Latin word for hope. In Italian, it's I hope. My ancestry is Italian, and that's why I picked this word, because it's the opposite of fear. I think a lot of the 5G and everything is shrouded in disinformation and confusion and fear, and the opposite of that is bringing a solution, which I love making the hats and all this, but my goal is the children. I want to protect pregnant women, and I want to protect infants in this unfortunate 5G environment that may be surfacing. All the while I'm going to City Hall meetings and trying to find small victories in the 5G space. But there will be communities with 5G, and I want people to have not just the knowledge that a solution or an alternative exists, but protection. I want to protect people with it.
So I have a question about the rest of the world, because I know, I mean, I've spent some time outside the United States, and I see chemtrails everywhere in the world, and that in your story you talked about Iran. So is the United States doing the whole world, or who's doing the rest of the world? And how are they all coordinating that? Or do you have an idea about that?
I believe it was J. Edgar Hoover that said when the American public is faced with a conspiracy so big that it's just easily dismissible. And this is a big one. And this is why they've been able to control the perception of it. You go talk to most people and they say, oh, chemtrails, that's a dirty word. Didn't you see? It's fake, right? But then geoengineering is a fancy, nice, big word. It means saving us. It's the same exact thing. So to answer your question, if you don't play ball with the United States, you're in big trouble, for one. So there's a shadow government that says we have exclusive rights to saving the planet. Do you want to spray your people, or do you want us to do it? For one. And then there's a lot. It's a lot. There's airlines like Ryanair and whatnot that are paid to outfit their planes to spray in certain spots and whatnot. And yes, the U.S. military and their drones. I mean, by now there's so many drones, and under all these different programs that, yeah, they leave U.S. territory and they do it elsewhere. But also, I mean, look what happens if you're not on board with what the U.S. says. Like, you get, I mean, the bad guy's in charge. And yeah, they subcontract, and other governments work with them, and other governments, like, they're indoctrinated, it's normalized, and they're on a need-to-know basis, you know? And they're told, we're saving you from global warming. Are you going to help us, or we're going to get in some beef? You want to get in beef with the U.S. or what? I mean, it's a shadow government, and they're nefarious. And after 9/11, they had a black ops budget that Congress signs the checks and don't even know where the money's going, you know? If I answered that, please ask me more later if you want.
Two things. I was wondering, I took geology in the early 80s, and I think the clouds were basically, it was a cumulus, and I think the other was nimbus. I can't even remember.
And cirrus, yeah, there's three classifications. I remember that growing up.
Right. So in the new geology books, do they include all these new weather patterns, or?
Yeah, just like in the medical books, they'll tell you that, you know, vaccines are safe and fluoride. I even had I went to the library and I got a medical book, and it said, be sure to cook with Teflon pans to get your dosage of Teflon. This is like in a nurse's manual. And I'm like, there's so many things wrong with that statement. I don't even know where to begin. But
Dark
yes,
water came out. Teflon's being exposed.
Oh, good. Yes, I'm glad. And it's amazing that there's all these activists exposing fracking, exposing this, exposing that. Everyone's playing their part, and it's beautiful. And we're on the verge of a mass awakening. But to answer what was your question?
About the geology books.
Oh, yeah. Meteorologists are trained, and the books are changed. And I mean, almost everything is going digital, and everything is manipulated and changed to preach the lies that they choose to tell us are truth.
And what about the UN Agenda 21 depopulation?
Yes.
Any comments on that?
Yes, that's part of it. I mean, when they get to dictate, so when these questions arise, like, well, who's going to lose from this? The powers that be say the global South, which is a Civil War reference to the South being where slaves are, and a reference to the color of people's skin. But there's a lot of references. I encourage you to look up Geoengineering Global South, where they say the global South, lots of lives will be lost because they won't get rain, they won't get sun. Not to be like crude or anything, but the biggest losers in this, according to their terminology, are brown people, basically. It's like the US will be okay, you know, we'll give ourselves enough sunlight, but the rest of the world, especially South America, the global South, they call it, which is like a deep reference to African Americans in slavery and South and the Civil War and whatnot, but they say that those people will be impacted, lots of lives will be lost for the greater good.
So I guess that kind of leads into my question about the slide that fascinated me about Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And I had predicted a biological weapon being released 6 months earlier, and then sure enough, it hit China. So I could see where they would use the engineering of controlling the climate to starve out a country.
Mm-hmm.
And then it doesn't look bad, because how do you prove that somebody actually did that?
Especially when you control the media.
So what do you know about that specifically, since you put your slide up about that? Because I could see where other countries would come together, because, you know, if you can control the interests of that country and get them to do what you want, and they say no, and then you cause a drought, kind of like California, we consider its own country.
Yeah.
The rest of the United States says.
And California's under attack on so many different
You know,
levels.
I mean, I'm now, as a conspiracy theorist, my brain is just
Truther.
turning. Thank you very much. I'm going to go get a shot of whiskey so I can shut it off. But you got my mind going.
Totally. In the, does anybody need a FrankenSkies DVD? Please raise your hand. In the film FrankenSkies, which I'm really happy that I've been able to give out so many DVDs. I'm so thankful for everyone to share this with anybody or whatever. Very thankful that the movie was so well received. In the film, that full clip is in there, and Ahmadinejad says, our rain clouds are being emptied every time they come to our country, you know? And to answer your question, yeah, there's more research saying that we are manipulating and causing drought over there, but all we have to do publicly is say, they're working on nukes. We've got intelligence. I mean, we if you haven't noticed, like, it's getting insane. I mean, 20 years ago, if we had just gone and killed the Iranian vice president, essentially it was the Iranian vice president who was in Iraq, and we just drone attacked him. If we'd done that 20 years ago, that would be like a war crime. I mean, we can't just do that. But now it's like, oh no, he was plotting against us. And then Trump addresses the world and says, we had intelligence, so we got him. That's what he says. We got him, and everyone's like, "Hoorah, America!" I mean, it's a slippery slope where we're headed, and everyone needs to know the truth. But Iran is demonized, and I really hope that in my lifetime we don't go to full war with them, because I hate war and whatever. Yeah, next.
On a totally different note, although I think it's all World Bank related, all that stuff you're talking about. As a practitioner and just what I'm seeing on Facebook recently, there's a lot of talk about this disease or that disease. Oh, I've been diagnosed with, and it's like a 7-word long something that legitimizes their reality that they have this symptom, which could be a bruise on their arm, but that bruise on their arm is going to be named some big long thing. And I feel like that's what you're talking about has been happening with those clouds that are literally crisscrossed. But those clouds that are crisscrossed, are they making it sound like that's actually happening in nature?
Some of them are happening in nature, and some of them are Homo mutatis coming from jets, but not.
But the Homo mutatis ones, are they considered a natural cloud, or are they considered a jet cloud?
Those are considered jet clouds, but
Okay.
some of them look like them or not. I mean, basically, the answer to your question is both to confuse the crap out of you.
Yeah.
I have two question remarks.
Yeah.
So I was glad that you started off with we are in a whole situation of lies, and we don't know what's lies and what isn't. Because to me, that's the thing that really unites people on our side.
Totally.
That's one thing.
That's what I want to do.
People are from the Poor People's Campaign, they say stop lying. People from my part of the world, these are lies. But the other thing of what causes the Gateses to do this kind of stuff, I think it's hubris. It's a group of people from way back, mostly men, who think they're better than God or better than the natural world or the natural order. And the people
And they claim to have
who-
exclusive rights to saving the planet. Who says
well, they can do it better.
that? Yeah.
They can do it better. And to my way of thinking, that's exactly the the lie,
Yeah.
that we can't figure out a better system. And I wonder have you talked to the Sunrise Movement or people from, I consider them to be the people who are paying attention. Young people.
The Sunrise Movement, I'd be happy to be connected with them. I'm not really sure exactly who that is, but I love anybody who's cool.
Okay, just saying, we were talking about from the movie FrankenSkies, the meteorologist who described all those different clouds. One of them was fructus, and shouldn't you say fucktus?
No, well, after that happened, a woman wrote an amazing poem incorporating all the new words, and the last stanza says, "But little do we know they flucked us," which was great. And that's just her. Like, it was a woman off of Facebook, and then I posted it, and it went pretty viral, and just that poem is playing her part. Everybody can play your part. No matter what it is, you can do something.
Are there any other questions?
Thanks, everyone. You've been
I wanted to make two comments, and I would love your input. So one of I think it was your question over there. What do you say when people are just like, oh, those are just contrails? My question to people is, well, okay, if it's just gas, if it's just the exhaust coming out of a plane, that's also not good. Like, we don't have any, we're so worried about our cars and making the pollution that comes out of the exhaust come out of our cars be so good. How many planes are up there on a daily basis? And if they're polluting like that, well, there's climate change.
Yeah,
and I don't even go into the whole seeding or anything like that. The place where it's probably 3-4 years ago, and I was just like, yeah, right. I see them up there. They're, yes, but is it really real? There's a app that's a radar app. And I took this radar, somebody told me to do this. I took the radar app, and what it does is it has every single plane in the US, possibly outside of the US, but it definitely is in the US, has every single commercial plane and private plane that is flying in the sky. It has their flight path. And what I found was I would look at the chemtrail that was flying directly over my head, and I would go on there and I would look at where I'm standing, and there was no plane above me. There was not a single plane on this radar that was directly above me. There was nothing there. And I was just like, okay, this is crazy. And that's, I think little things like that, when you show people, you're just like, people are just like, yeah, right, whatever, Christine. I'm like, okay, look at here. This is going above us. Show me the plane on the radar that's going above us. And they're just like, it's not there. And I'm like, okay, so it's not a commercial jet. It's not a private jet. It's something else. What is it? So that's just, to your point, there are different ways to approach people. I mean, in every movement that we've talked about in this expo and beyond, I think there are ways to plant seeds, and it's, as you said, it's all about just planting the seed, and it's going to fertilize at a later date, whenever that comes. On the vaccine issue, I always say to people, just read, if you want to get vaccinated, go get vaccinated, but just please read the package insert before you do it, so you know what the side effects are. And then they're like, there are side effects. Yeah, go read it. Oh, and they're not tested for cancer. You know, those types of things. Same thing here. Like you find the little information, and that gets people thinking, because we have to wake the people up. But thank you, and thank you, Matt, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you. I just want to say one really quick thing. You mentioned vaccines, and what I like to hone in on for parents is I say, well, do you know that your infant creates a blood-brain barrier at the age of 18 months? Do you want to inject different chemicals into their body before a blood-brain barrier is developed? And then it's just like, it's very kind of smart, and it's like, well, they'll fact check you, and oh, well, blood-brain barrier develops at the age of 18 months. How come the vaccine schedule tells me to get the MMR before that? You know, it can start to open these doors by just being gentle, you know, like, oh yeah, get your kid vaccinated, but wait until the blood-brain barrier is developed, or they might have a reaction, because you need that blood-brain barrier to protect your brain from mercury and formaldehyde and, oh yeah, and either way. There's ways to go about it, ways to be really gentle. Thank you. And by the way, I was supposed to say this in my speech. Thank you so much for having this, for bringing Truthers, bringing us together. We're so thankful for you.